so this is Calamity Canyon, and so one of the first things that you'll see, hopefully, is that this whole map is kind of built around this collision course of these crossroads. And so if you look at the spawn points to where the banks are, again, they intersect, and what ends up happening is, again, a really, really big rumble at the center of this intersection. And then on either sides of this kind of crossroads are the gem locations. And that's where, again, that platforming comes into play, and that's where players are going to have to choose whether or not they're really kind of focused on the enemy interaction and collection of Wumpa, or if they're going to try and go and seek out that additional boost. One additional thing here with those gem pads is just in general, the platforming of the game. One of the things that we found, and one of the things you'll see kind of across all these maps, is the platforming itself is not necessarily smoother or wider than it was in Crash Bandicoot 4, but as a design mentality, what we found is when working on the single player of that kind of tense, precise, execution-based platforming, it kind of presented itself differently than what we found when you're contending with 4 other enemy players. Yep. And so we've decided to make kind of the platforming asks not necessarily simpler, because again, you're figuring out your strategy, you're figuring out your enemies, but it represents itself in a different way in these maps.
And you also have free camera control.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, in the original trilogy, in the Crash Bandicoot 4, you had those fixed camera paths. Yep. But here you've got free control of your camera, which just changes the gameplay again. It
does. And so, you know, there's select areas where we bring in that narrow platforming, which I'll get to in a second. Now, talking about the relic stations in this map, you know, there's these apocalyptic exploding roller balls that you can activate. You know, every good apocalyptic level is apocalyptic exploding roller balls.
Do they become white hot as you roll further and then explode?
Undoubtedly.
Okay.
Undoubtedly.
Cool.
Yep. And then one of my favorite relic stations are these kind of force field walls that you can put up in front of either your own bank to help prevent the enemy from going to try and stop you from banking, or you can put it up in front of the enemy's bank, which actually requires them to take kind of this circuitous, again, narrow platforming.
Good work.
Thank you, circuitous. Yeah, I know. This narrow platforming challenge around the force field. And, you know, when you've got a dingo there blocking the way, that is very, very tough to contend with. But again, at the center area of this intersecting crossroads is where you'll find the epic relic station for this match, which is a bit of a cameo. It's one of my favorites. What, you want to talk about it?
No, I think it's your favorite. You should talk about it.
So, essentially, the epic relic station here summons nitrous oxide and his UFO to kind of rain down a laser beam of terror, death from above action. And one of the things that's really cool about it is that it's autonomous. And so once nitrous oxide is in the match, he starts to follow enemy team members, which really puts them on the back foot, having to constantly move around the area and avoid basically being dematerialized out of existence.
Yeah, and it's a good point. On Just Beachy, the epic relic station was that extra bank, so it was kind of an opportunistic upside for your team, right? You're purchasing the opportunity to have 2 locations to score, whereas here it's an autonomous offensive move against the other team.
It's almost like having, you know, an extra teammate on your side. That's right. Just pestering the other team.
That's. So the epic relic stations on each map, they aren't just thematically different from each other. No. They provide these different strategic ways of thinking about how the game flow works on each map.
Yeah, it's what really helps, you know, along with the layout, you know, define these maps as being truly unique.